Welcome to the Flex Rental Solutions webinar. Today we're going to be giving you an update on the Flex5 project. We're going to show you some of the new features that we've developed over the past couple of months since our last webinar, and then kind of give you a little bit of an overview of the upcoming quarter or a couple of quarters and what we expect to see in terms of development over the next few months. So I'm going to be working in one of our demo sites today. I'm going to be jumping between the old version of Flex4. I guess that is technically our current version of Flex. We call it our old version though, since it's the one that's on its way out. I refer to that as Flex4. I think a lot of you are probably familiar with that concept now, but we talk about Flex4 versus Flex5, which is the new HTML5 product. If you want more background around the whole transition, why we're doing things the way that we're doing it, you could watch my previous webinar. It's just on our YouTube page. We talk all about the HTML5 project and kind of the back-end considerations that have to do with that, a little bit of our timeline and things like that. Today, I'm really just going to be looking at some of the new features and things that we've been able to develop lately. And then, like I said, give you a brief overview of what our next couple of months look like. So let's just get started. I'm going to jump right over into Flex5. And the first thing that you might notice, especially some of those of you who are using Flex5 as our beta testers, you might notice, and you can even log into your Flex5 system as of this morning, and you'll see our new calendar screen here in Flex5. Previously, this was just kind of a blank future dashboard screen, but we were able to implement our calendar screen. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit and what it currently is, what it will be in the future, and talk about a really cool thing that one of our developers was able to do. He solved a pretty big problem that we were facing, but what that means is that you can have a more seamless experience between Flex4 and Flex5. So I'll come back to this, but I did want to just overview a few more of the new features that were released as part of the new Flex5 version that we pushed last night. So this is version 0.27.6. You can also review some of the other version updates since our last webinar and see some of the things that we've been implementing and fixing. So the big thing, obviously, is our calendar list view has been implemented, which we'll look at in a minute. We also made some improvements to your project element list pages, like when you go to the projects menu and click quotes or any of those elements and it pulls up a list. We've made similar improvements to that page that we did on our calendar, and I'll show you what that looks like as well. We've also made some improvements and changes to just some of the basic UI. That's one thing that I always like to touch on when I'm talking to our customers about the Flex5 project is that we are constantly receiving feedback from all of our customers who are currently using Flex5 in the alpha environment. And we'll take that feedback and we implement any changes that are requested, fix any bugs that you have found. And one of those things was the context menu, that little 3-dot menu that you see on quotes. We did have that at the far right-hand side of the line, but we got a lot of comments about how that's kind of inconvenient, not very fluid, so we moved that over to this side, and I'll show you that once we open a quote. We're able to implement the basic event folder UI. We're still working on some of the features surrounding that, but the basic UI is there, and you can view child elements of that event folder. And we also did quite a few just UI and functionality improvements. Did quite a bit of work on suggestions, both how suggestions are added to a job and how you can add new suggestions to an inventory item. Just some UI fixes and bug fixes for some various other things as well. But let's look at some of these new features and some of this new functionality. And like I said, for those of you who are actively testing Flex5 right now that we have given access to, you'll be able to see all of these things in your system if you go log into your Flex5 instance right now. So obviously, first that calendar. So Let me start by explaining what the calendar in Flex 5 is, and then we'll talk about a few things that it is not, and some of the functionality that will be forthcoming. So the first thing that you'll notice is we don't really have a calendar tab anymore. We're going to go with the approach of a home screen, and on that home screen you could view your daybook, list view, calendar. We haven't implemented the calendar view yet, the one where it shows like the full month view in a calendar format, but we will be working on that. And then our dashboard, which for those of you who have used our mobile app, you're familiar with the concept of the dashboard, where we're putting different widgets and things like that on there. As you've noticed, we haven't implemented that in Flex 5 desktop environment yet, but we will be. But this is kind of the format that we're going to be having on our home screen now. Is you'll see your daybook, your calendar, your dashboard. Possibly we'll implement the to-do list on here, and anything else that might be something that you want to see when you log into Flex. And then we'll also have the option to choose which one of these things opens by default whenever you log in. So for now, that is not implemented. We've just put in the basic list view daybook, and that's what will open when you log into Flex. The really cool thing though, and this, if you've listened to some of my previous webinars or seen some of our updates about Flex 5, all of this is communicating to the same settings and same database that you already have set up in your Flex 4 environment. So if we go back to Flex 4 and look at our calendar here, here are all of my calendar templates, and each of these calendar templates is set up a little bit differently with different columns and different information that's being pulled. And all of those calendar templates have ported over just how you're used to them in Flex 5. And all of the different columns that you implemented and things like that will be carried over into Flex 5. Now, one thing that we're doing, and you won't see this in the user interface of Flex 5 yet because we don't have the settings for this calendar set up here yet. But if we go back into Flex 4, and you remember if you go into your calendar settings, the way that you would add new columns is by adding a list column with a caption, and then you'll use this column expression, the element dot, and then add that information there. We're not doing that in Flex 5. That's a really kind of outdated and cumbersome way of pulling data to show in various screens in Flex, and we're not going to do that anymore. Initially, when we decided that we're not going to use these column expressions anymore, we thought that we would have to have all of you customers go into Flex 5, open up your calendar templates, and then go into settings and have to reset all of the different columns. The same columns would port over, but you would have to go in and use the new method that we're going to use to be able to pull data. But one of our developers just did something really, really cool where he was able to work some back-end magic that will look at whatever column expression is being used and essentially translate it into the new way that we are pulling data in Flex 5. So the long story short is, and what that means to you, is that now you'll be able to log into Flex 5, see all of your calendars, see all of the columns, and all of the information and data that you've set up in Flex 4 will port over, and you don't have to set up anything else, which is a huge relief to me. I was worried that we would have to have you reset some of that information, but you don't. Now, the one thing that I will mention, and especially for those of you who are testing Flex 5 now or will be testing Flex 5 soon in the future, we were able to get most of these expressions translated. In the words of the developer who did this, he said that he probably got about 90 to 95% of them, which to me, I think covers basically everything that any customer might ever be using. But there might be some of these expressions, like, for example, if you click the suggested expression, some of you may have seen this list. There's just literally hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of these. So there might be a handful, maybe in the neighborhood of 5% of these that won't translate over into Flex 5, but we can fix that. So if you log in and you open one of your calendars and you're seeing a column that's not pulling data and you know that your jobs have that data, then just let us know. Use the send feedback button here. Let us know that there's a column that's not pulling data. It's definitely pulling data in Flex 4, but it's not in Flex 5. And then we'll have our developers look at that and create the necessary translation, I guess, for a lack of a better term. so that whatever you set up in Flex 4 pulls into Flex 5. Just to illustrate what this looks like, again, let's go into Flex 4 and make a couple of changes. Let's say we set up some of these date things just as a test. I don't need to show two different dates there. So we're going to have our full date here, which is our start date. In fact, we could probably even just change that name. Oops, I think I accidentally moved it. Or we even have a start date here already, so let's just get rid of this. So we're just making this a little bit simpler. Maybe we could add one more column, and let's find the expression for that. Total price, and save. And the reason that I'm doing this here in Flex 4 is, again, like I mentioned, we haven't set up the settings and customization of calendars yet in Flex 5. So I still have to make those changes in Flex 4, but Flex 5 is communicating to the same database and the same settings, so that if I were to refresh, and I think this is a soft refresh, that's only refreshing the elements that are being pulled, so I'll have to do a hard refresh to show the new settings, and there we go. The things that I just changed and set up in Flex 4 are now showing in Flex 5. So that's our initial venture into the list view calendar. We have our developers working on this stuff now to finish some of this. They've pivoted to work on a couple of other things that we want to get out by the end of the year or early next year. So you might not see the ability to do settings and some of the other things here on this calendar view for a little while. But like I just showed, you can make all those changes here in Flex 4 and still see them in 5. And this is fully active. I can open different elements from the calendar. Eventually we'll put in, the little context menu or cogwheel that will allow you to do certain things on the calendar like you have on here in Flex 4. But I think this is a really good illustration of just kind of the general development cycle of Flex 5, where it's very iterative. We're programming something like this and giving you access to kind of a phase 1, and it's fully usable. You can come in here and actually use this in your system. But all of the different settings and some of the additional features that are associated with this calendar screen are not yet implemented yet. But you'll start seeing those over the next few months as we start implementing them. And then as we do, new releases of Flex 5, then you'll start seeing that as you log into Flex 5. And that's going to be the whole process of how Flex 5 becomes the primary product that everybody is using. We'll just start by implementing something like this. Another good example is event folders. If we go and open an event folder, for example, we just have a very basic event folder view. We don't even have any of the various tabs along the top of event folders yet. And we don't even have the ability to edit event folders, but you can view the project tree. And eventually, I don't think it's implemented quite yet. It might be. I think maybe this was implemented just as of a day or two ago. You can run workflow on event folders. But then eventually, of course, we're going to add the ability to create a new event folder from Flex 5 and the ability to edit an event folder. And we're even going to change the user interface of the event folder a little bit to be a little bit more modern. So again, that's just the process of Flex 5. You're going to see things like this, and they're going to be fully available to you, and then you'll see all the different phases through various updates of the Flex 5 product. In a couple months, you'll be able to do this. In a couple more months, you'll be able to do that. So I just thought those things were really good illustrations of the Flex 5 process. You don't have to wait until we're done with everything in Flex 5 to be able to use it. In fact, I meant to mention this as we started the webinar, but since our last webinar, we've gone from just a handful of people that are actively using and testing Flex 5 to just about 100 people now, and not people, but customers. So however many users within each of those 100 customers, we could potentially have hundreds, if not thousands of people who are actively using and testing Flex 5 right now. And I know that a lot of you have probably requested access to Flex 5. We put you on our list. In fact, our DevOps guy just sent me a message that said he's probably going to be working on activating another 20 or so of those people on that list. So be patient. If you have asked for and requested access, then you're on that list, and we're activating people 20 ish at a time, and you will get access eventually. We're hoping to get up to about 130, 140 customers actively testing Flex5 by the end of the year. And then we're going to kind of take a pause to look at some of the feedback that we're receiving from those customers, making sure that there aren't any major issues, especially related to like calculation of pricing and things like that. Major issues that we need to flesh out. And once we've kind of made sure that we're at a really good place, we're going to start giving more people access to Flex5. We're going to lift the alpha designation and officially start calling it our beta product. And at that point, we'll get more up into the several hundreds of customers that are testing Flex5. I see some people asking, how do you request access? Just go ahead and send an email to support, and our staff is trained to add your name to that list, and I kind of manage the activation process of that list. So I'll go through and prioritize and move people on that list around. And like I said, just about every week we're activating about 20 or so customers. So just send in an email to support. They'll get you on that list. And then, like I said, just be patient. We'll get you activated. You'll get an email from me telling you how you can access Flex5 and things like that. Okay, that was a little bit of a side note. Let's get back into looking at some of the new features and things in Flex5. Like I mentioned, the project element pages. So that would be when you go to your projects menu and click on quotes or pull sheets or any of those things. You briefly saw that when I went to event folders, but let's look at that by going to our quotes page. So again, previously, people who were testing Flex5 may have seen, when you go onto these pages, just 4 static columns. I think it was name, number, and the dates. That, again, was just kind of our phase 1 implementation of that feature. And we knew that, obviously, a lot of you have spent time to set up your own personalized columns through project element settings here in Flex4, and we wanted to retain those. So as part of the calendar project, our developer also went in and kind of did the same thing with those project element search pages. So I'm going into our Flex4 project element settings right now. I think a lot of you are probably familiar with this, but you go into your search options, and this is where you change the various columns that show when you go to those project element pages. So whatever I had set up in the settings here, that's what shows up on that list. And again, we use these column expressions to pull that data. So I would set up a caption for whatever information I want to show, but then I have to use one of these element dot whatever things to actually pull the data and show it in the user interface. Just like I mentioned with calendars, we're kind of moving away from this approach in Flex5, but we still wanted a way for whatever you had set up in Flex4 to be translated effectively into Flex5. And again, we did that with these project element search pages. So I'm back here in Flex5, and all of those columns that I set up in my Flex4 settings are being pulled over and translated into Flex5. And the same thing applies here. Our developer said that he was able to get 90 to 95% of those translated. So if you go through and you're looking at these various pages and you happen to see a column that just isn't showing any data in Flex5, but it's definitely showing data in Flex4, again, just let us know. Send feedback using this button here and just let us know what column that is, which expression you're using. So we want to see the element dot whatever expression you're using, and then we can determine if that's something that we need to fix. The other thing that's really nice about these pages is that they will be paginated now. So I know that some of you customers have just literally thousands and thousands, if not tens of thousands of quotes and different elements in your system. And when you open this page and try to load it, Flex4 would load all of those things at once. Flex5 is going to do that a little bit differently, where we have it on different pages. So quotes, for example, I'm probably going to have, it's a smaller batch, but about 240. And it loads, I believe, about 50 at a time. But we're also, of course, going to be implementing search and filtering and all sorts of different features on this page that you're used to. So even though it's not showing all of them at the same time, you will be able to search and filter to show the ones that you're looking for. Again, this is just our phase 1. I suppose this is technically phase 2, but in future phases, we're going to be implementing the search and filtering and sorting and things like that. In fact, I do know that one of our developers is actively working on that as we speak. Don't know if we'll see that by the end of the year, but definitely early in next year, we'll have a new version update, and you'll probably start seeing some of that stuff on these search pages. So those are really kind of the big things that we were able to do since. Well, actually, there's quite a few things that we were able to do since our last webinar, but these were kind of the bigger things that we've done just in our last version. I'll show you a couple other things. Let's open up a quote and just talk about a couple of things that we've done as well. We've done a lot of work on the locked and closed UI. One big request that we've always gotten from people is that, like in Flex4, when you open something that's closed or locked, then it is definitely locked. The UI is locked. You can't really reference the element very much except by using these buttons here, which was pretty inconvenient. So in Flex5, we kind of changed that approach where everything is still technically active and you can scroll through this. And I can't really scroll on this one because it's not big enough, but I can easily scroll through and reference lines. I could even copy a line. I think we're still working on that functionality, but if I want to copy something and paste it into another element, so maybe I'm referencing something that's old, that's closed, and I want to paste that into a new element, then you can do that kind of stuff on locked and closed elements now. But a lot of it is still locked in that I'm trying to click into the quantity here and I can't change that. If I try to drag and drop something onto this quote, it doesn't let me. Or if I am able to, then it gives me this message that says, sorry, but the element is locked. So that's just one change that we made that I think is going to be pretty nice. It's small changes like that, but things that we've always been getting requests for from our customers, and little things like that that would just help improve their efficiency. Let's actually open something that is unlocked. And like I said, there's a couple of things that we changed since our last version. We moved the context menu over here, just so it's a lot easier to reference which line that you're on, and just quickly click and come in here and be able to view all the different options. We've also made some improvements to some of the options that you have over here. Not everything is implemented yet. There's still a few options that you won't see here, but for the most part, some of your major options are here, and we've been fine-tuning how all of these work. One thing that I will mention, and that this is something that I've gotten some feedback from several customers about. Let's say I select multiple line items and I go to delete lines. This is one thing that we are very aware of, and we're keeping an extra close eye on, is that a lot of times when we develop something and try it in our test systems, it works like a charm. Like you saw that, it popped up in a matter of half a second, and I'm able to delete those items, and it works really well and really fast. We got some reports from some of our customers, though, especially those that have thousands and thousands of jobs and a very large database with lots of line items, that process was taking sometimes up to 20 or 30 seconds. And obviously that's unacceptable. That's something that we don't want, because one of the biggest reasons that we are doing this whole project is to improve speed and efficiency. And so obviously the development process is like any other process, where a lot of times you don't get it exactly right the first time, but we're very much aware of some of those issues, and we're very much dedicated to fixing some of those issues. So if you do have Flex5 access now, and you've noticed that there are some issues with speed and performance here and there, just know that those are very much phase 1 of some of those features. That's not what you can expect from the entire Flex5 product when we're finished with it. We're definitely taking all that feedback, and we're definitely making improvements and changes as we go. I don't have the demo in this system. Let me log into one of our other demo systems really quick, and I want to show you just how quickly and how efficient things can be in Flex5. So Chris Stein, our CEO, built a big quote. And when we open that, I mean, first of all, it's closed and locked right now, but that's okay. I could probably go into my workflow and go back into my confirmed state or something like that. Oh, it's not letting me right now because I don't have the right permission. But the point is with this is that this large quote that would probably take, honestly, 30 seconds to up to a minute to open in Flex 4, you saw that it opened in our header section literally within about 1 or 2 seconds. And we did that on purpose. We've kind of split the header, detail, and totals because a lot of times when you're coming in to make a change to a quote, all you're doing is maybe changing something like the terms or like the tax rule or something like that. We didn't want people to have to load the entire job just to make that quick change to the header. So you can load the header within about 1 second. But even still, we've made it much more efficient in how items load when you go to the actual details of a quote. I don't know how many lines that is. Actually, it looks like we've made it a little bit smaller. So let's do some experimenting really quick. Let's open up one of our jobs here, and we want to start adding a whole bunch of lines to it. So first of all, I want you to see just how quickly and efficiently things can be added now. So I'm going to go in and just add some of my test lines here. And you'll just see how much smoother it is and how much faster things move. A lot of that is the HTML5, just getting off of Flash has kind of helped a lot of these things, but also it's the new backend that we've built. We've made it a lot more efficient. All of the different backend checks that happen and things like that, we've just really made a lot more efficient. So you're not looking at, the screen spinning and things like that for as long as you might have in Flex 4. Things scroll just so much nicer. That was always my biggest pet peeve in Flex 4 with Flash, is just how jumpy scrolling can be, but HTML5 is just so much smoother and so much nicer. So let's just add a couple more items, and what I want to show you is just not only how fast you can add items like this, but how fast and how efficient things like copying and pasting works, especially once you start getting into the hundreds and hundreds of different line items. So that's pretty good for now. Let's copy this entire job. So I'm going to select all, come over here and copy lines. We have a new little clipboard here that shows you how many lines you have copied. And then I can either paste using the paste option over here, or I could use the clipboard to paste the copied lines. But I just copied all of those lines, and it's literally happening within seconds. So let's select all lines again and copy. I now have 51 lines, then paste. And let's just do this again a few times. So copy, now I have 102 items, and paste. Let's select all again, copy and paste. So we're very quickly getting up into the 400-500 line item range. I guess 408 now, so let's paste again so that we get up into the 800 line item range. Takes a little bit longer, but in Flex 4, that process would probably take, I don't even know how long. But let's close that and reopen it now so that you can see just some of those improvements in the speed. First of all, it just opened the header right away. And then you go to the details, and it's loading this 800 line items in a matter of seconds. And it looks like the dates are out of the current date range, so let's actually change our return date to somewhere in the future so we can start seeing availability. So I've changed that return date. Let's go back to my quote now. And now availability is starting to load. And we've also made that process a lot more efficient too. Excuse me. Where line items will load first, and then the availability will start loading as it becomes available. So it's not going to be an instantaneous load of availability, but it's still very fast. You're still going to see those things load as you scroll. And we just wanted to do that so you didn't have to wait for Flex to load every line item, load all the availability. That's what would sometimes take things 30 seconds and up to a minute or more sometimes to load in Flex 4, is just the inefficiency in loading and things like that. Now we can come in here and make changes to the details. And again, this is an 800 line item quote. Changes like that in Flex 4 would sometimes take a minute or more, depending on the size of your quote. But now it's just within seconds, those changes are made. One thing we're really excited about too is there were some terrible inefficiencies in Flex 4 regarding the mute boxes. So if I were to price mute every box, that was technically in the back end doing a bulk edit, which was a very, very inefficient process. And we had some customers that would say that would just literally crash their system. So we've improved that, where now I just price muted 800 line items and I can unprice mute 800 line items, and it's just taking a matter of a couple seconds. So again, those are just some of the improvements that we have seen. And like I said, there are some things that we're already getting some reports on that are a little bit slower than we want it to be, and our developers are looking at those things as they come in from our customers, and we're taking those issues very seriously. And it's a lot easier to fix those issues now because Flex 4 was kind of built on, years and years of different developers building a back end. And so it just became really, really difficult to try to make efficiency improvements because of, I guess for a lack of a better term, how thrown together some of the processes were in Flex 4. But now in Flex 5, with our full-time in-house staff, everybody who built this back end is still with us now, so that whenever things come up and we see inefficiencies in specific customer systems, we know exactly where to go to fix it, and we know how to fix it quickly. I'm just going to click through a couple more things that we've implemented in Flex 5 and talk about what we're going to be doing. It looks like I got a little UI glitch, and those are things that are still happening. We're in the alpha state right now, so we're still going to see the occasional UI glitch where things might not load properly. So I just did a quick refresh, and here we are. But we've got services view. We've changed the layout just a little bit, where your production tasks and skills and qualifications will show in tabs below now instead of up here with the main info. We're going to be doing something very similar with contacts. So if I open up a contact, there's our good friend Aaron Horn. He might be here in the webinar. Hi, Aaron. But we're doing something very similar where we'll put like the basic information up top, but then have all of the other information in tabs that are a little bit better separated and a little bit more user-friendly than it was in Flex 4. We're just trying to make everything as consistent as possible, so you don't go to one page and expect one thing and then go to another page and expect another thing. Like in Flex 4, you would go to the inventory page and it was laid out and set up in one very specific way. And then you would go to a contact and it was laid out and set up in a very different way. And services, same thing. So we really just wanted to make that as consistent as possible. When you're looking at your resources like this, they all kind of follow the same layout. They all obviously have very different information, and so we've separated those things into our various tabs. But you don't have to context shift very much when you're going between different tabs. Everything is just kind of set up the same now. So I promised that I would also just briefly talk on what the next couple of months look like. As you can see, obviously, when you look at the release notes, you can see all the different things that we've done just in the past month and a half alone. As of this morning, I know of at least another 5 or 6 bullet points that are going to be on the release notes for 27.7, things that are already developed and merged into version 27.7. And we'll be releasing that early in January. So that's just the speed in which we are making improvements and adding new features in Flex 5. We're not dragging our feet on this. We have, let's see, 2 full-time developers that are what we call full stack, that can work on back end and front end, and they're building all of our big major features. We have 2 contracted developers who are working on a lot of the user interface stuff. So whenever we see UI bugs or just need things updated or changed in the UI, then they're the people who are working on that. And then we have a former Flex user who's now a developer with us too, who kind of does all of the above. He does a lot of our backend stuff and is really good with the kind of the business logic of Flex. So he understands what customers are looking for. He understands it from a customer perspective and is able to develop features and help our other developers build features with that mindset of being a former user. And then, of course, we have our tech lead who's kind of running the whole show and organizing all of that, and our DevOps guys who are working more on the server side of things. But that's our full-time development staff, and this is all that we're doing right now. We've had a few distractions over the past few months, like needing to address some changes to the QuickBooks integration and a few other like server-side type things. But for the most part, 95+% of our development efforts is all here in Flex5. We're adding new features. We're improving the things that we've already built, so that in the next couple of months, you will see fully fleshed out contact view. You will see a fully fleshed out services view. You'll be able to create new contacts and add new services. You'll see a lot more features implemented on things like our calendar. And when you open up a quote, you'll start seeing more and more features and improvements to the UI and speed efficiency improvements there too. So all those things are kind of what we have on our plate for the next couple of months. And when it comes to the amount of people who are going to be testing and using Flex5, we've just had a discussion about what it takes to get out of our alpha state and into beta. We're hoping to start make that transition over the next month. And once we enter the beta state, then we'll be opening up Flex5 access to even more customers. So if you don't already have access, what you can expect when you do get access to Flex5 is the ability to view all of your different elements that you already have created in your system. Like I said, none of this you're going to have to redo. It's all just going to be there. Flex5 is speaking to the same database as Flex4. You'll be able to open quotes. You'll be able to create new quotes, make changes to existing quotes. And I say quotes, but I just mean financial documents. So whatever you call your quote. We're still making some UI improvements to how all of this looks and whatnot, but for the most part, we're really dialing in what our finished product is going to look like. And then from there, it's just a matter of we still need to add the ability to add child elements, for example, or we still need to add the ability to enter a payment. Those are the things that we'll be working on over the next few months. And for those of you who have access to Flex5, you'll see those things in your system as we release new versions every 2 to 3 weeks. So again, I always like to reiterate that point, is that you don't have to wait for us to finish Flex5. You'll get access as soon as we, give you that access. Once we get to your name on that list. And then once you have access, you'll see all the updates and all of the work that we're doing every 2 to 3 weeks as we push new releases. So hopefully, looking a little bit further into the future, in the next 4 to 6 months, we're hoping to have the ability to fully view and edit pull sheets and manifests. Right now, I can view all of these in this system because this is our internal development system. If you have access to Flex5 right now, you won't be able to see this, but this is how far our developer has come with this. He's put in the ability to make changes to lines, move lines, add suggestions to lines. We just don't have that sidebar in there yet, but he is working on that. So hopefully in the next month or two, you'll start seeing access and the ability to do things on pull sheets. Same thing with scanning. Right now we have implemented free scan in, free scan out, inquiry scan, but we don't have prep and return yet. But that is one of the next big projects that one of our developers is going to be working on. He's going to use all the same backend that we already built for our mobile apps and just implement that on the desktop environment. One thing that he just finished and we're still kind of polishing is our content builder. Let me go back into this demo site. I know the inventory on this demo site a little bit bigger. We're taking the same approach that we did in mobile where Content Builder is its own screen. So I could either come into Content Builder and then start scanning containers here, and it will open that container and I can start building the container by scanning inventory like this. But we also wanted to retain the same functionality that excuse me, that you're used to, where if you're like on your calendar screen or somewhere and you scan a container, then it will open that container in Content Builder so you can just immediately start scanning. And of course, the same functionality, if you scan that container barcode again, then it will close that container so that you're no longer building it. So it's a little bit of a shift in thinking, but the functionality is still pretty much exactly how it was in Flex 4. What's really, really great though is just how much faster. I mean, you've seen how quickly these things are loading and how quickly things add as I scan in various inventory items. I'm trying to remember some of the barcodes. Oh, it looks like that. I think that's part of the polishing that we have our developer working on. That kind of fell off of the screen. But yeah, this is currently something that we have a work in progress. You won't see this in your system if you have access to Flex5, but this is our phase 1. Our developers working on polishing all of the little bugs and whatnot that were part of phase 1. And then once we find it is to the point where we're ready for customers to start testing it, probably in the next month or so, then we'll include that in a future release, either 27.7 or 27.8 or whatever that might be. So those are some of the things that you can look at in the shorter term, some more scanning and things like that. And then in the longer term, we're really hoping, like I said, in the next probably 4 to 6 months, that a lot of our customers will just be logging straight into Flex5 and be able to do most of their day-to-day work right in Flex5. So instead of going and logging into Flex4 first and then using one of the links or something to get into Flex5, you'll just come right in here, type in your web address with the F5 attachment to the URL, and just log in straight to Flex5. You'll be able to see all of your jobs, open these jobs, make edits and changes, send reports, send it to the client, create new jobs, various types of scanning, inventory management. We're already getting really close where quite a few people can do a lot of their job here in Flex5. But like I said, in the next 4 to 6 months, we're hoping that the majority, if not almost all of our customers, will be able to do almost all of their day-to-day work right here in Flex5. Obviously, things like system settings and some deeper things like that will continue to exist in Flex4 until we get to the point of porting all of those over to Flex5. But we're well on track to meet the end of 2020 goal where browsers stop supporting Flash, and we should have pretty much everything ported over at that point. If there is anything that's not ported over, then we have solutions for people to still access Flash, even if it's not in a traditional browser like you're used to. But like I said, most of your day-to-day work we definitely will have done by the end of 2020, if not much sooner. So that is our update for Flex5. If you do have any questions, or if, like what we said, you want to get on that early access list, then just email support@flexrentalsolutions.com and they'll put you on that list. And like I said, just be patient with us giving people access to that. We're at just about 100 right now. We're going to get up to about 130 by the end of the year, and then we're going to take a quick break and just kind of make sure that everything is stable, and then we'll start giving more and more people access after that. So in the next couple of months, we're hoping to get up into the several hundred customers having access, pending any major issues that pop up, but we haven't really seen anything yet. So we're looking on track to be able to do that. So yes, if you want access or if you do have any questions, just email support. And if you have any feedback, if you're a current Flex5 tester, please use this send feedback. I review that feedback pretty much every day, if not every couple of days. And we've actually implemented and done quite a few fixes and implemented some new features that have come from that feedback so far. So I know that some of you have mentioned you've already seen those fixes come through. So we're very quick on those. We're trying to get as much as we can into each version so that everybody has a pretty seamless and just a really good experience in Flex5, and there aren't any major issues that prevent you from being able to use it.